who some of you my age may remember. I don't know if you've seen a movie called Sunseed. It was a very pivotal movie in my spiritual life. I saw it in a health food store in Chicago around 1968 or 69, and they've reissued it. And it's got people like Satchidananda and Pir Vilayat Khan and Ram Dass, and a guy that I fell in love with, a Sufi teacher named Sam Lewis. And I'm watching him in this movie and I'm going, I'm finding that guy and I'm going to study with him. And at the end of the movie, it comes on and says, this film is in memory of Sam Lewis. He died while they were producing the movie. But anyhow, Pir Vilayat Khan was one of the first people to bring Sufi dancing, as did Sam Lewis, to the United States. So this is a good intro to what we're going to do today.
I'm muting everybody.
He says, overcome any bitterness that you have accumulated because you are not up to the magnitude of the pain entrusted to you. That's a brilliant line. Overcome any bitterness that you've accumulated because you were not up to the magnitude of the pain entrusted to you.
Because you were not. You were not up to it. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
Like the mother of the world who carries the pain of the world in her heart, you are sharing in the totality of this pain and are called upon to meet it in compassion and joy instead of self-pity. This is something I work with my people, is any situation you're in, you can either use to increase your self-pity or to increase your self-esteem. This takes it a step further in terms of saying increase your compassion for yourself and the world is another way of saying it. And so the work that we're doing right now is a way of transforming that bitterness and self-pity that we carry into compassion and something that actually heals us in the world. And nobody's better at Tonglen than Pema. So this is pivotal teaching from the master in the West on this particular topic. So we're really blessed to have her teaching this morning. So,
and if you were here last week, she gave us a little introduction, sort of a drive-by version of what's called Tonglen, Tonglen, Tonglen practice. And the one last week was simple Tonglen for pain and for pleasure. And now today, it's about an 8-minute meditation, and then we'll continue for the 20. And it's called the 4 stages of formal Tonglen practice.
The idea here is that if we make the suffering, the breathing.
Wrong one. Didn't play it. For some reason, it jumped back. Let me find it again. Okay. Here we go.
That being the simplest form of on-the-spot attitude, of the Lojong or Tonglen attitude, now I'm going to teach the most complicated. And this is a Tonglen instruction that was given by Trungpa Rinpoche to his students. This is the form of Tonglen that I was taught, and I'll now pass on to you. So the Tonglen practice in the style that Trungpa Rinpoche taught has 4 stages. The first stage is called a flash of openness, just a moment of opening the mind. And traditionally it's called a flash of the absolute bodhicitta. That's kind of not necessary to have those fancy foreign words, just a sense of openness. And the next stage is one breathes in quality of claustrophobia in the form of breathing in like a dark, heavy, hot, breathing it in on the medium of the breath, and breathing out cool and refreshing, sort of the quality of inspiration or letting go or well-being. And one does that synchronized with the breath, breathing in the quality of claustrophobia, breathing out the quality of openness or spaciousness. So breathing in dark, heavy, and hot, sending out cool and light and refreshing. Then the third stage is working with something personal and real to you. And this is actually, as a formal practice, this is where it gets tough. And this is why I teach Tonglen on the spot, because on the spot, there's a real situation occurring, your own personal suffering, which can be a stepping stone to understanding the suffering that other people feel just like you, or the suffering of another person. Something immediate is happening and you begin to do the Tonglen. It doesn't even occur to you to do it unless something is cooking. But when you're sitting here and suddenly a gong rings, I'm going to ring the gong when we start Tonglen, and then somebody says, now start doing Tonglen about someone else's suffering or your own or whatever. It's very easy to just spend the whole time trying to figure out what to do Tonglen for. And also I had the experience for years where the gong would ring. To begin Tonglen, traditionally the gong rings like this. And then the person who's leading the meditation will say, begin Tonglen. So that gong would ring. And my experience for years was I would just sort of space out. And then about 10 minutes later or something, there would be an ending gong. And at that point, I would wake up out of my, wherever I was, and realize that I had just had 10 or 15 minutes of not doing Tonglen. This was beginning to get embarrassing because I was becoming more and more famous as a Tonglen teacher. I thought if they only knew. So it was at that point that I really started doing it on the spot more and more. And as a result of that, now when that gong rings or I started doing Tonglen practice without a gong, I have a lot of material to work with. It's become so second nature to do it on the spot, and therefore there's a lot of current issues going on, my own or the people in my life where there's suffering happening, pain happening. But in any case, today, when we get to that third stage of working with something particular, I'm going to suggest that in this particular morning meditation, that you do Tonglen for a family member, anybody in your family. And I choose that on purpose because that representing usually for us intimacy, intimate relationships, and usually also difficult relationships. And so in this sense, you might choose someone in your family and they might be in difficulty. Perhaps your mother or your brother is schizophrenic, or your father or your sister are addicted to alcohol or heroin or crack or something in any case. And so you want to work with a particular individual and you start doing the Tonglen for them, and it's very genuine, and the whole session you just do the Tonglen for them. On the other hand, it's just as likely with a family member that just bringing up the face of your mother or your sister, your father or your brother or your uncle or child or whoever it might be brings up a lot of conflicting feelings. Everything from sometimes a mixture of loving them and hating them, sometimes absolute aversion. And so in that sense, when you think of the family member and it brings up confusion for you, then you could shift your attention and start to do Tonglen with breathing in, connecting with whatever it is you're feeling, your aversion, your confusion, your mixture of like and dislike, breathing in and connecting with it fully, and sending out to yourself and all others in the same boat as you, whatever it is you feel you need at that point to open up the situation, sending out spaciousness, relief, relaxation, loving kindness, good cup of coffee, whatever it might be. So this third stage is very particular. And then the fourth stage is universalizing, which is to say, this is what I've been talking about all along, that when you do Tonglen for your mother who's in difficulty, and it's very straightforward and it's not complicated, you do it for your mother who is alcoholic or who is suffering from tremendous pain from cancer or senility and confusion or whatever it might be. And then you extend it out and do it for all the other men and women in the world who are suffering in the same way as your mother is. Or if you think of your mother or someone in the family and you feel a lot of confusion, aversion, fear, whatever it might be, you start doing Tonglen with what you're feeling and all the other people who feel the same things as you do. So I talk of it as four stages, the third being something very real and particular, and the fourth, generalizing it more, using your own personal experience as a stepping stone for all the other people who feel like you do, or all the other people that are in the same situation as your mother or father, whoever. But sometimes it's even more valuable to think of it as three stages, and that the third stage has a kind of part one and part two. Part one being your mother, and then almost simultaneously you do it for all the mothers or all the people in your mother's situation, or your fear, and almost simultaneously, if you can, you do it for all the people who are feeling fear in this very moment of time, in this very moment, all over the world, people who are feeling what you're feeling. So now just to review again, I'm going to say three stages of Tonglen. The first is a flash of openness. The idea here is that if we make the
Okay, she doesn't really continue. It goes on to another teaching. So
Okay, so let's do a little background on this. So you're going to be hearing a lot about polyvagal theory, and you're going to be hearing a lot about self-regulation, moving in the vagus nerve out of dorsal, which is where you feel like a pathetic, hopeless case, and everything is your fault, or sympathetic, which is where you feel like you're under attack and everybody is just mean, doesn't understand, to recognize that lingering in those two parts of your vagus nerve is a form of self-hate, that it floods you with cortisol, floods you with all kinds of things that age you. It sets a horrible tone for your day, and you're basically practicing suffering. Now, you're either suffering and practicing suffering, or you're practicing letting go of suffering. So when those things happen, part of the reason we meditate is to realize I went from having an easy day, sukha, to struggling, dukkha. First noble truth, life is dukkha, it's a struggle. And the reason it's a struggle is because I'm self-centered. Second noble truth, we suffer because of self-centered desire. I want things to be differently. Poor me, everybody's mean to me, Well, what happened if you threw a pity party and you didn't go? What if you said, I would rather be happy instead? And once we realize that we have a choice, that we have control of that, like some of you know, I use the image of a radio tuner, that if I don't like death metal and that's playing on the rock station, I can switch over to KDAQ and listen to something beautiful. Okay. I have that control. We're developing that control through our meditation. So we have a promise in 12-step traditions that says if we practice these steps, selfish things, and begin to take interest in others. And this is the door out of selfishness, is to begin to realize that other people are in the same boat I am. I'm not the only person suffering. And to also use it as an opportunity to experience compassion for myself instead of pity. The difference? Yeah, there is a huge difference. So compassion is an acknowledgement that my pain is real. Okay. What did you want? All you want from other people is, God, I can tell you're in pain. Yeah, I feel you. Sorry you're going through that. That's what we want. We want someone to be with us. We don't want them to fix us. They don't want us to condescend to us. We just want them to acknowledge that we're going through a difficult time. Do that for yourself. Okay. Acknowledge that your pain is real. So this is where it differs so much from the pseudo spirituality that's out there. People who meditate are not always, oh, I'm always in love with the world and in love with myself. No, it acknowledges, and she acknowledged, the same people that you love, you hate. Sometimes you're extremely angry with them. Sometimes you're frustrated. Sometimes you want to throw them to the curb. All of that is normal. We don't exclude that. We bring all of that onto the cushion, onto the mat in yoga, but we view it non-judgmentally. That this is not something that's wrong. This is not something that needs to change. This is something that needs love and awareness brought to it. Okay. And then it will heal. Things don't get let go of until we feel safe. So it's creating a safe place for you to feel your pain, to feel the pain of the world. And that's how we heal ourselves and heal our relationship to the world, is by creating this safety, by becoming aware of it, not allowing that awareness to slip into self-centeredness, but instead become a way of connecting us. So Tonglen is very much that breathing in the pain of others and breathing out love and compassion. Breathing in what I would normally avoid, breathing out what I would like to keep for myself. Extremely powerful practice once you get used to it. So in polyvagal theory, it says when you realize that you're dorsal or that you're sympathetic, that you're in fight or flight, or you're in the freeze and dissociate part, see that as an opportunity to move to one of your practices that will take you back to ventral. And this is one of those practices.
So it can either go to pity or go to compassion.
Or go to compassion. And we've spent a lifetime.
There's a fork in the road.
Fork in the road. Every minute there's a fork in the road.
There's a choice.
There's
Make a compassionate choice.
When you start struggling, as Pema says, see it as a wonderful opportunity. She's got a line, she says, don't see it as a sign of your weakness or somebody else's meanness and effort to control you. See it as an opportunity to shift into a better place, to actually apply the teaching. She said, you may only be able to do it for a second or two, but she said, realize what we're doing, people, is building neural pathways. I don't know how you thought change was happening back in the 70s and the 80s, that you just read a book and you substituted one set of thought patterns for another.
For a mantra.
That doesn't work, okay? You literally have to undo old neural pathways that are hardwired and recreate new ones. You lay down proteins every time you think that become a hardwired neural connection. That's what we're doing. That doesn't happen overnight, folks.
You know, I like the last part of the Tong Lin, which is the universal.
Yeah.
And, you know, so many teachers refer to this, realizing that we're all in the same boat.
Right.
Kristen Neff, in her book on self-compassion, talks about it as realizing your common humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And Judith Lassiter says, oh, how human of me to feel self-pity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how human of me. So,
right. No blame. No
right.
blame.
Not a judgment, just, yeah.
It's what I'm doing. It doesn't work. It's painful.
Yeah.
Okay. What y'all got?